We're at the Democratic National Convention in Chicago, speaking with historian Douglas Brinkley. Conventions have become a made-for-TV spectacle. What were they before that?
The big year for, in my mind, of all modern conventions is when nobody talks about 1952, because they brought TV cameras in, but in those days there were like a couple of cameras trained right on the stage. If you go back and look at clips, you'll just see smoke. You don't really know what's going on. It didn't have all this interpretive apparatus around it. Walter Cronkite was a very young former World War II reporter who got the lowest job in the world, TV. Nobody cared about it, but Cronkite made money giving candidates makeup and how to look on TV, including John F. Kennedy took the course and Sam Rayburn. Richard Nixon never took the course. And each 4 years, television played a bigger role. So by 1960, with so many homes with TV, it would be like the birth of email or the iPhone, televisions in the home. And that's when John F. Kennedy became our TV president. He did it by running with the 4 debates against Nixon and winning. He did it by inventing the modern press conference. It's sad that we didn't have John F. Kennedy at 1964 in Atlantic City. But the takeaway of Lyndon Johnson getting the nomination in '64 for the Democrats was a moving tribute film, meticulously made, 22-minute long, honoring John F. Kennedy. And then Robert Kennedy came out. And I think when we go to each convention, it's about the speech, but we don't have video of Theodore Roosevelt's speeches, and so you can't compare. So, but in election lore, really since the 1960s, there are people that have mastered the convention speech. The number one was Bill Clinton in '92, because that speech put Clinton up so high. It's the biggest bounce out of a convention due to the power of his speech. And of course, Barack Obama got invented by being the warm-up speaker in Boston in 2004. For John Kerry, and so it's a way to get noticed, the way AOC got noticed here in Chicago in 2024. Their initials are known, that she gets maligned by the right, she's loved by progressives, but people got to see her charisma in play. And thus far, on this particular convention, I was moved by a few things. One is the triumph of Chicago people. The big first major modern convention of 1932 was when FDR in Chicago came. Up until FDR, presidents didn't come to their conventions. It was considered kind of gauche to be hanging out where people are horse trading about you. And he gave, famously here in Chicago, the New Deal speech. He created the term New Deal. And since '32, these conventions, and particularly the film footage that lives on, are a major part of our politics. I thought Jesse Jackson, who ran in '84 and '88, has been lost in the shuffle a little bit because of John Lewis and civil rights and Andy Young and others. But he was here in a wheelchair, and just seeing him struck me of what a pioneer he was when he ran in earnest in the '80s. And then Hillary Clinton just did this gem-like speech that I thought was incredibly impressive. And certainly everybody will be talking about Biden's speech, the oddity of him still being the sitting president, coming on late, talking for 50 minutes, but being emotional about his entire life, about being an American, with the emotional introduction by his wife and daughter, Ashley. So it's been a lot of highlights already. And the one thing that they've done well in Chicago is they've packed the roster with great speakers.
A lot of people have been comparing this year with 1968, a year where there was political unrest over foreign wars, political violence, an incumbent president not seeking re-election, and of course a Democratic convention in Chicago. As a historian, what do you make of those connections?
Well, it's not really apropos, except that there's an element of protest over Israel-Gaza, and then you had Vietnam in '68. But in '68, there was a traumatized Democratic Party that the party itself was deeply divided between the Doves, anti-Vietnam War behind Eugene McCarthy, senator from Minnesota, And then the Johnson administration, represented by Hubert Humphrey, the sitting vice president, and it was a division inside the arena, and then the outside, Mayor Daley over-policed. They didn't have modern security apparatus. They didn't have the right helicopters telling you where to go. They weren't able to use things that we can do with modern security apparatus and just cyber world in general. And so it was just dominated, the visuals, by the protesters, the tear gas, the beatings, and counterculture figures became stars. A poet, Allen Ginsberg, or the absurdist writer, Terry Southern. You had the Yippies, Abby Hoffman, Jerry Rubin, and Black Panther, Bobby Seale. And so there was a circus commotion in the streets of Chicago. That doesn't exist. People are sitting in cafes right now, sipping tea, and it's pretty calm in the main downtown of Chicago. But I do think in Chicago this year, security, and because President Trump, former President Trump, was shot in Butler, Pennsylvania, and there's that inexplicable building where is the security for speech? Chicago Police Department has partnered with Illinois, the state, with the governor, and Homeland Security. So they have a kind of cordoned off situation here like I haven't seen at a convention before. I think it was intense in Milwaukee, but it seems to take on a new dimension in a city the size of Chicago.
Thank you very much for your time.